We tested a 5.0 Coyote, a 5.3 Ecotec 3, and a 5.7 HEMI after more than 200,000 miles. But this wasn't three random used trucks. My buddy Ricky has run all three on the same farm since 2017. Same dirt, same weather, same fuel, same kind of work, same maintenance schedule. The Ford has 217,000 miles. The Chevy has 204,000, and the Ram just crossed 201,000 miles. Ricky didn't buy them to prove anything. He bought whatever he could get a deal on that year, mostly Fords, a few Chevys, and a couple of Rams. 9 years later, that gave us one of the cleanest V8 comparisons I've had on my own lift. And one of these engines looked considerably better than the other two. I'm RJ. 20 years working on Fords. I don't work on Chevys and Rams every day, but these three I pulled apart on the same lift, looked at with the same eyes, and judged against the same four checkpoints every time. Valvetrain, bore and cylinder condition, oil control, and whatever showed up outside the engine itself. Let's get into it. First up, the Ford. 217,000 miles on a 5.0 Coyote V8, backed by the 6R80 6-speed. This is the Gen 2 Coyote, 2015 through 2017, before the 5.0 moved to the 10-speed in 2018. And that distinction matters because the reliability picture on this specific generation and this specific transmission is not the same conversation as a newer 5.0. The 6R80 behind it has a reputation for being nearly unkillable when it's maintained on schedule. And after pulling the pan on this one, I understand why that reputation exists. Valvetrain first. Timing chain, guides, tensioners, all showing wear consistent with the mileage and nothing more. No rattle on cold start, no slack in the chain beyond what 9 years and 217,000 miles should produce. A clean checkpoint. I went in expecting at least a hint of chain stretch at this mileage and had to look twice to confirm there wasn't one. Intake valve cleanliness is its own separate story on this engine. Port injection greatly reduces the carbon buildup that direct injection engines deal with on the back of the intake valves, since fuel is washing over them on every stroke instead of bypassing them entirely. Pulled the intake and had a look, and there was some buildup, normal for the mileage, nowhere close to the point where a walnut blasting service would come up in a conversation. Bore and cylinder condition is a separate checkpoint from that. A visual inspection through the cylinder with a scope, no scoring on the walls, no glazing that would suggest ring wear beyond normal. The kind of clean bore you'd want to see on an engine half this age. Oil control was normal for the mileage, no consumption trend, nothing on the dipstick that told a different story than the odometer tells you. Pulled the valve covers to get a look at the top end, and the only thing waiting there was a faint line of residue where a gasket had started to seep. Not anywhere close to a real leak yet. The one real mark against this engine was that valve cover gasket. Cosmetic at this stage, not a performance issue, and about $150 to $250 fix whenever Ricky gets around to it. That's it. One small cheap finding on an engine with 217,000 miles of farm work behind it, dust, heat, and the same stop and go hauling every day for 9 years. Almost boring. On a 9-year-old farm truck, boring's the best word I can use. Now the Chevy. 204,000 miles on a 5.3 Ecotec 3 L83, backed by the 6L80 6-speed. This is where the comparison stopped being predictable. Bore and cylinder condition came back clean, same as the Ford. Direct injection on this engine has its own carbon story, similar to what direct injection Ford engines deal with, but at 204,000 miles it hadn't progressed to anything I'd call a finding. Oil control also looked normal for the mileage. No consumption trend to report there either. 2 clean checkpoints, same as the Coyote. The Valvetrain checkpoint is where it changed. This engine uses active fuel management, GM's version of cylinder deactivation, and it's known to put extra wear into the lifters and cam area associated with deactivation hardware. The part's doing double duty, switching between 2 different physical states instead of just doing one job for 200,000 miles. Here's what that actually looked like on the lift. Before we even pulled the valve cover, there was a faint tick under load that Ricky mentioned almost as an afterthought. Said it had been there for a while and never gotten worse, so he stopped worrying about it. That's exactly the kind of noise that's easy to write off. Pulled the covers to get eyes on it directly and found early stage wear right in the area tied to the deactivation hardware. I'm not going to tell you this proves a specific lifter is about to fail. I didn't pull this engine down to the crank to hand you a diagnosis I can't back up. What I can tell you is what I saw with my own eyes on my own bench. Wear consistent with the exact area GM cylinder deactivation system is known to stress, at a mileage where accumulated wear is no longer theoretical. Left alone, that pattern is the early chapter of a story that ends up with a full cam and lifter job. All 16 lifters, a new cam, a new timing set while you're already in there, parts and labor landing somewhere around $2,000 to $3,000. Caught now, it's a conversation with Ricky about a repair on his schedule, not an emergency on the side of the road. This is the headline finding of the whole comparison, not because the engine is falling apart at 204,000 miles. It isn't. It's still running the farm every day, because it's the one checkpoint across all three trucks that changes the cost picture if nobody addresses it. Put it next to what we found on the other two. The Ford's gasket is a $150 to $250 afternoon job. The Ram's manifold bolts, caught early, run around $300. This is a $2,000 to $3,000 major cam and lifter job if it's ignored long enough to become one. That's not a knock on the Ecotec 3 as a design. Plenty of these run well past this mileage. It's the reason this specific finding carries more weight than the other two combined, dollar for dollar. The Chevy didn't fail this test. It handed us the one finding that actually costs real money down the road. I put together the same Ford longevity checklist I use on any Ford I look at. What to check, when, and why, before small findings like this turn into four-figure repairs. It's free at fordscope.com. And if you want the deeper reference, the Ford Longevity Blueprint goes further. Last, the Ram. 201,000 miles on a 5.7 HEMI, backed by the 8HP70 8-speed. After what we just found on the Chevy, I went in expecting this one to be worse, not better. Bore and cylinder condition, clean. Oil control, also normal for the mileage. No trend worth flagging. Two checkpoints that came back looking closer to the Ford than to the Chevy, which is not what I expected walking up to this truck. There is a real finding here, and it's a well-documented one on this engine. This HEMI also uses cylinder deactivation. Ram calls it MDS, and it carries its own version of the same wear conversation as the Chevy's AFM. But the finding I actually confirmed on this truck showed up as two different ticks at cold start, and telling them apart is the whole diagnosis. First tick showed up the second the key turned, a sharp ticking sound right around the exhaust manifold area. Gave it about a minute to come up to temperature, and that tick faded almost completely as the metal expanded and the small gap it was coming from closed up. That's the signature of exhaust manifold bolts on pre-2018 5.7s like this one, which are known to fatigue and occasionally break over time. Caught early, replacing them runs around $300. Let one shear below the surface of the head, and that job can turn into a much longer afternoon with a torch and a pick set. But there was a second tick underneath the first one that didn't follow the same pattern. Once the manifold noise faded out, this one was still there. Quieter, more consistent, not tied to how warm anything had gotten. I'll be straight with you about this one. It's the kind of noise that could be the same MDS-related Valvetrain wear we found on the Chevy, or it could be something else entirely. That's worth a proper Valvetrain inspection, not a diagnosis I'm willing to hand down from one afternoon on a lift, listening through a cold start. It's a flag, not a verdict. One confirmed, well-known, inexpensive finding, one open question that isn't fair to call settled yet. Bore and oil control, both clean. It's a much better outcome than this engine looked like it was heading for 20 minutes earlier. The Ram was supposed to be the easy engine to beat here. It came closer than I expected. Line all three up the way we checked them, and here's what the bench actually showed. The Coyote, 3 clean checkpoints and 1 minor gasket. The Ecotech 3, 2 clean checkpoints and 1 Valvetrain concern that's genuinely expensive if it's left alone. The HEMI, 2 clean checkpoints, 1 confirmed and inexpensive finding, and 1 flag that honestly needs more digging before anyone calls it. 3 V8s, more than 600,000 combined miles. Same farm, same kind of work, and the difference wasn't where most owners expected to find it. And that's why the numbers of findings alone doesn't decide this test. What matters is what those findings mean at 200,000 miles, and what they're likely to cost next. On engine condition alone, at these 3 specific mileages on this specific farm, doing this specific work for 9 years, the 5.0 Coyote is the clear winner. Not because the other 2 are bad engines, because on the day we had all 3 up on lifts, this is the one that gave us the least to worry about. But before any Ford owner celebrates too hard, there's one part of Ricky's Ram I'd take over the Ford without hesitation, the 8HP70. 8 speeds, built by ZF, and it shifts with a polish the 6R80 doesn't even try to match. A wider gear spread, less hunting for the right ratio under load. The 6R80 has its own case to make, simpler, more proven, the kind of transmission that earns its reputation by outlasting everything around it without much drama. Different strengths, both real. If you made me choose between these 2 transmissions in a truck I had to drive every day, I'd take the 8HP70. If we're judging the engines on this bench, I have a winner. 2 different conversations, and I'm not going to pretend they're the same one. If this video helped you keep a little more money in your pocket, and you'd like to support the channel, hit the join button below. I'll see you in the next one.